Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, it is another listener question show, which means I only have the vaguest idea what we're going to be talking about today. So I cannot wait to get into it because every once in a while these ones go real weird directions. I'm hoping we can keep this one more on the tracks, but you never know.
Well, Tom, your hopes and 35 cents will get you won't even get you a newspaper anymore. Anyway, let's see here, Tom. We're going to finish out some of the most of the listener questions. And let's start with this one from at Perry Elias 08448. Now that Notre Dame has the receivers required to win a national championship, how many championships will they get in the next 3 seasons? And of course, we know they picked up Quincy Porter from Ohio State. We know they picked up Milan Graham from Ohio State. Both of those players have 3 more years of eligibility. And boy, I am not going to be shocked to see Notre Dame win a national championship in the next 3 years. Frankly, they're in the Midwest Triangle right now that is winning everything, so that helps. Although we'll have to adjust the triangle once they win it, I guess. But I'm they seem to be like the program right now that is what you would expect to win a national championship. You got talent on both sides. You got a young and improving quarterback. We'll see what they do with the running game. Losing Jeremiah Love and Darian Price is going to be difficult. But do you think Notre Dame? Well, shoot. Let's answer the question, Tom. How many national championships will they win in the next 3 years? I'll say one. One. Not confidently.
Yeah, I think they're in the conversation where for 30 years you just went, well, Notre Dame's not going to win the national championship, and it's for the same reason that Notre Dame had went literally 30 years without a major bowl win following the 1994 Cotton Bowl. They really didn't win any of the New Year's Six bowls or any college football playoff games until they got to the playoff in the 2024 season. So they went literally 30 years without doing it. And all the reasons that you back then would say, well, they consistently did not have a wide receiver, they didn't have the quarterback play, they didn't, they were good along the lines, but they weren't well-rounded enough. Their coach was too purple. All the reasons that you heard over and over again over the years, they've clearly addressed those. Like Marcus Freeman has done a really, really good job at Notre Dame over the last few years since he took the job over. And they have addressed some of those issues. And you saw they got to the national championship in the 2024 season. And for a brief moment in the second half, looked like they had a chance to maybe win it a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, I think they are certainly in that conversation. But also, the safest answer for this is zero. They will win zero national championship over the next 3 years. If you set the over under at 0.5, I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably taking the under. This is not a guarantee like it would have been 8 years ago when all the systemic issues that they had not figured out how to overcome them. Now they do. They have brought in some impressive players and have shown that they can get to that level. And frankly, I think if they had gotten into the playoff last year, if just as Miami just barely got in the playoff and then went to the national championship game, if Notre Dame had been in there instead of Alabama, Notre Dame certainly could have potentially made a run like that. I'm not saying they would have, but they would certainly have been a team that I would have looked at as, boy, this is someone that Ohio State probably would much rather face an Alabama team that made it rather than a Notre Dame team that didn't. So I think there's certainly a possibility they make it, but I think the safest answer is zero, followed by one, and then with two and three being distant possibilities.
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll have to do a show asking the same thing of Ohio State. How many national championships do you see this team winning in the next 3 years? Because the answer should always be zero. Like, it should always be the realistic answer is always zero because Ohio State wins one now on average like every 10 years. So, how many are they going to win in the next 3 years? Well, didn't they just win one year ago? So, probably zero. That's the realistic way to look at it. That's not how everybody looks at it, but like I said, realistic. But I do think it's an interesting conversation because now that Ohio State is adjusting to recruiting and the portal. We'll see how they do. But thank you for that question. The answer is 0. Next one from at TD and G. Tom, they've got a petition here. Petition to officially name Ohio State wide receiver Devin McEwen Lightning McEwen. Tom, you're famously a Pixar nerd. Your thoughts?
Wouldn't describe myself as a Pixar nerd. I do have children and am familiar with the Cars cinematic universe. I kind of like this. I think it's a good nickname because it kind of captures. He's sort of a speedy guy. I think you have the built-in catchphrase of it's a Gus Johnson screaming, McEwen touchdown, ka-chow! Like you can hear it. You can hear that on a noon broadcast. I like that a lot, but we have to go through the whole thing, and then like which one of the is it one of the tight ends is Mater, or is it one of the one of the offensive linemen? Like we have to name all these all of these guys, and then is there a Plains spinoff in a year or two? There's a lot of different directions we can go with this, but just to begin with, I like the nickname. I don't know if he'll like the nickname. I guess he'd probably be of the age that he probably remembers that, right? I mean that's probably about the right timetable. So time frame. So yeah, I'm on board, but you always kind of want the players sign off as well before you. It's like Lightning McQueen killed my father. Like, well, okay, then we won't do it. You never know if there's a backstory, but probably not. But just to be safe.
Mason Williams could be Mater. I mean, you've already got the first 2 letters right there, just waiting, doing nothing, just waiting. How about you could call Kyle Parker Costanza? Why? Well, because it's been one of the things where he's like, I never said I was a good driver. I said I was a good parker. And it's right there for you. Now, should you have a nickname based on your existing last name? I do. Like other people have. Now, should it be completely different than what your last name is? I'm not here for that. I'm not answering any more of your questions. So there you go. Tom says yes. Quick question here from at RNRA91. When will Coach Day have media availability? I'm interested to hear his take about the Cotton Bowl after he watched the film. We have not heard anything right now. They're not going to put us out on the streets on the road with the way the snow is. Although we could do it now. By now, there probably won't be anything for signing day because there wasn't last year, if I recall. Although you've got some coaching changes now, I would expect something in the next couple of weeks to introduce. So at least once they still haven't made official the Arthur Smith yet. They've made official the Cortez Hankton. So there are some things certainly to cover. So I would expect something in the next, I won't say week because again, the weather's been what it's been, but I'd say next 2 weeks. Sure. Why not?
Yeah. And some years we've gotten the freshmen who are January enrollees. That's always greatly appreciated because then we can talk to the new players and all that. And that helps a lot with editorial coverage during what is typically a somewhat slow month in February. I would expect to see or hear something in the next few weeks because as you said, they will once the staff is kind of set, then they'll probably we'll tend to get the new coaches and hopefully the new players. And this is always that kind of weird time of year where someone wants to ask about the Cotton Bowl, but you kind of feel like you almost apologetically have to do it because it's like, well, what does that even matter at this point? That season's gone, and it's kind of weird because there are legitimate questions to ask about that, but also it feels like that's a million years ago, and so many of those guys who were part of that are gone, and you're already kind of turning the page to this year. So I'm sure you will get a little bit of, what did you learn from the Cotton Bowl kind of stuff, and that may get folded in a little bit into the conversation around Arthur Smith, where you have, what made you want to, what did you not have last year that you wanted to find in him. So you're going to end up getting a bit of that directly or indirectly. But yeah, I would guess first half of February is probably not a bad guess, but I certainly hope we get stuff before the start of spring ball in the beginning of which I'm assuming is in the beginning of March, but they've talked about sliding that on the calendar too.
Yeah, and we still don't have that directly known yet. There's no reason to slide it now because they didn't make it, 3 weeks beyond what they did last year. So they could start it first week of March, and then just do what they normally do. So that's another question that needs to be answered, and that's only 4 weeks away, basically. So we'll get all of those answers eventually. But I think one of the things that people want, there needs to be like, who do we blame for this? Is Ryan Day going to blame Brian Hartline, or is Ryan Day going to do this? Ryan Day's not going to do any of that. He's not gonna satisfy your bloodlust, basically, in terms of, he may just fall on the sword himself, and it's like, well, that's just coach speak, so that doesn't give you anything you want either. But yeah, it's like, did you play too many tight ends? Well, every play that we do, we think is going to work, and it's like, but that's not what they're looking for. That's not the answer that people want.
That's a reply, not an answer.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, you just want him. People want him to be like, I was stupid. I'm dumb. I made a mistake. I'll never make another mistake, and if I do, I'm dumb. That sort of thing, where you just, you need somebody to accept that something went wrong, or take responsibility for that. It's like, well, I mean, he's the head coach. It all stops with him. He takes responsibility for it. But I think people sometimes want like the visceral, the words of, yes, this is my fault. I did this. I'm the one that, accepts responsibility because I told them to do this and I was wrong, and I'm sorry that I'm wrong, and I apologize, and like all of this stuff that you're never going to get. But also it is sometimes good to like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Why didn't it happen? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you get those answers. Most of the times, it's just, it's either execution or it's scheme or it's coaching, and it's all of the same answer.
Yeah, everyone, I think the fan base, or at least the portion of the fan base that is like the most emotionally invested in getting these answers, wants to, him to specifically name the specific message boards he should have been reading for coaching advice, and the specific Twitter handles who knew better than he did, and he didn't listen, and that's not what this is. The conversation ends up being much more about, lessons learned and what you're going to do to apply them moving forward. And generally the answers you get are not always going to be as specific as people would like. I do think you're going to hear about the value of veterans and the value of guys who have played started previously in other spots, and bringing in older players. I think that's a clear enough trend that that's something he's going to get asked about, and he probably will be willing to talk about that. That was one of the lessons learned, was you need more veteran experienced guys and fourth year guys and fifth year guys and all that kind of stuff. So I think you will, whenever that happens, I think you will get some of those answers, but it is never as much as everyone wants. And then everyone wants to blame the beat for not asking the right questions. And it's like, there are certain answers that you're looking for that there is no question that will yield that answer. And that's just, we've been doing this a while. We can tell you, like, we can often go into a press conference and tell you, here's what he's going to say. Like, here's what he's going to get asked about, and here's what he's going to say. And here's the specific ways in which you're going to be annoyed after because we didn't get the answer that you wanted us to get. But that, this is the way this stuff works. It's just, this is the way you are rarely going to get in any sport coaches that are going to throw other people under the bus, because that's just kind of crappy management. And that's unfortunately, I think, what a lot of people are looking for. And that's just that, the people who do that are generally not very well liked. Brian Kelly is, if you want a coach who is going to throw people under the bus and tell you everyone else's fault, go root for a Brian Kelly team. I wish you the best.
Yeah, and so I do think Ohio State plays a part in this as well. Like, because you said, when you get it to a month after the season, it's like, well, we've moved on. and so is the beat. Frankly, so have I. Like I'm it's 2026 now, basically, and so any looking back, it's like if there was an exit interview type of thing 3 weeks ago, like 3 days after watching the film, that would have been great. And you can do all of that then. Now it's like you've got transfer portal. You got your freshmen have arrived, and all but I think one of them have arrived. Like to go back and then look, now it's not on it's not on my list of priorities because they lost. The season's over. We already know who won a national championship, and but that's you gotta focus. You gotta choose what you want to focus on, I guess, with your limited amount of questions that you'll get. So there you go. Couple of listener questions for you. Thank you always for sending those in. And if you ever want us to answer something, shoot them at us and we will take care of them. That will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.